Welcome to the Two-Way Street podcast with Rick Harris of Work Boot Consulting and Rob Berry of St. Louis Bath and Renovations. Our aim is to bridge the gap between contractors and consumers. Remember, communication is always a two-way street.
Today, we're going to ask a very fundamental question, or rather a good point, and it's all about asking better questions. How you as a contractor can ask better questions of your consumer, and consumers ask better questions so that you can get better answers. If you don't get the answers that you want for either party, ask better questions. Ask until you get. If you don't understand something, raise your hand. That's what Rick and I are going to be talking about today. I'm Rob Berry with St. Louis Bath and Renovation. This is my good friend
Rick Harris of Work Boot Consulting.
So thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, so you and I were talking a little bit earlier about the quality of your answers, the quality of the information that you get is only determined by the quality of the questions that you ask. And
that's a big statement you just said.
Yeah, I probably butchered it, but you
didn't. I was just saying, for me and my brain moves so quickly. You might want to say that again for everybody else, including me, because that's a lot. You just said a mouthful in that one sentence.
Yeah, I mean, so this is where, when I did what I was doing, when I was in the field, either in the service company or, the renovation company or those sorts of things. And even now when I'm meeting new people that could be, potential candidates for as a client and that sort of thing, I needed to ask good quality questions. I needed to be engaged with them to discover where they're at. So
wait a minute. Why do you need to ask good questions? Why does a contractor need to ask good questions with the clients? Isn't it obvious why the contractor's there and why the client called you there? Why should you ask better questions? What's that going to get you?
You need, one of the reasons is you want to know how they process information. What kind of information do they need? So one of the questions is, so if you're a service company, you do home service work or commercial, industrial, the question that you would always ask when something wasn't functioning is you say, what's going on? What's this thing doing? So based on how much information they gave back to you, that's how much information you have to give back to them. So if they're very specific and very detailed about what that thing is doing, you need to get their seeking information back that way. So
I've never heard it quite put that way. I think that was really good.
Oh, thanks. And it was something that was taught to me. So we always have this idea, and this is where contractors always fail. They don't ask the right question. How long has this thing been broken? How old is it? What are you planning to do? Do you have a budget? Is there anybody else going to be bidding on this? Those are the things that you have to ask. And the questioning process, it creates a conversation. So I ask a question, you give me an answer. You ask me a question, I give you an answer. So it's that back and forth, that give and take. If one of those people isn't, forthright in giving the information, it could be because you're not asking the right questions. So as a consumer, you have to know what questions to ask a contractor, because you may never have gone through this process before, or whatever it is you're trying to do, either a repair or a renovation or new build or whatever. And if you have never been through that, you don't know what questions to ask. So you have to be very prepared to ask those types of questions. Perfect example, talked about this the other day, when a guy came by to give me a price on removing a fence. So it was a wooden fence, a good neighbor fence, whatever that's called. And another guy said, are they pulling the posts or are they cutting them off at the ground? And I said, I don't know. I never even thought to ask. So that's on me for not educating myself about the process of how a fence works. So all too often we're afraid to ask that contrast of those questions. What are you going to do with this? What are you going to do with this? What, why? Be like a 3-year-old. Why? What are you going to do? Well, why are you going to do it that way? And then a contractor who is not afraid of those questions will readily give you those answers. There's nothing wrong with that. But the contractor as well has to ask those good questions. What is it? What is it you're looking to do here? Is this your forever home? How long have you been here? Have you ever been through this process before? Same as going to a physician, a doctor. The doctor will ask you questions. If you're not forthright with your answers, you're not going to be prescribed the right solution, which means if you're not asking for alternatives, should I have surgery? If you go in, the doctor prescribes surgery for something. If you just say, okay, and it goes wrong, I'm not saying it will, but there's always a possibility of surgery, and there's an alternative, there's a different option, you always ask for those options, right? So, is there an alternative to surgery? The same thing with coming in and looking at something in your home. Well, you got to tear that thing all out and redo it. Well, is there an option? Well, yeah, because I'm only going to be here for another 3 years. Oh, well, okay. Well, in that case, we'll just do this, and this. We won't replace that thing. So does that make sense?
Yes, I really like that line you said just 2 or 3 sentences ago about the asking the right questions so that you can get the customer the right prescription. I'm butchering that, but
No.
but that's great. I think that's great. If you go to the doctor, how he would treat foot pain is going to be drastically different than how he would treat if your arm was cut off, or if you whatever. I'm being ridiculous on purpose. Everybody that's listening, if you're a contractor, you know that when you've had good rapport with somebody, you probably ended up relaxing enough to ask better questions. And consumers, when you really felt that connection, you felt the contractor was listening to you, really felt like that they knew what they said. You got on better with them. Contractors, think back to that best customer. And from the first or second podcast, I don't remember which one it was, those episodes where we said, think back to your ideal client. Think back to where you had the best experience with your customer. How did that go? Think back on that and write those things down. Consumers, think back to the best contractor that you ever met. It doesn't matter what kind of contractor he was, but think back to the best experience that you had. You guys probably had very good communication. And if you remember from our first episode, we talked about every breakdown in every relationship has been the lack of communication, in my opinion. So if we can communicate better with our contractor, if we can communicate better with our consumer, we're there. You've at the beginning of the job, you're halfway home if you guys are on the same page with spoken expectations and all these things. But asking better questions is going to lead you to a better result. And like Rick just said about having the right prescription, that's going to get you healthy again, right? I think that was a fantastic thing you said there, Rick, and that really hit home with me.
Thanks, I appreciate that. So one of the things so I'm certified in DISC, which is like a personality assessment.
Tell everybody who started that.
Dr. William Marstow, and he was an interesting guy, super intelligent. I believe he was a professor at Harvard, but he created this personality profile, and it's based on patterns of behavior. Everybody has it's repeatable patterns of behavior. And so what happens is, and the way his is different, and the way the one that I use is different, is it shows you 3 different graphs of how you present to the world. The one is how you present to the world, the one is how you see yourself, and the one is how you become under pressure, under stress. And it could be minimal, it could be minor, but that's your go-to. And that's really how you're hardwired. So you think of yourself in a situation and you walk out of there and it's like, where did that come from? That's how you're hardwired. So D is an acronym. It stands for D is for dominant, I is for influencer, S is for stable, or steady, and C is for consistent or compliant. Which means that we're all a blend of those. So in the DISC world, in this personality profile, it's not the be all to end all. There are other good ones out there as well, but this is one that I'm certified in. So D's like to be in control. I's are very chatty. S's are the salt of the earth people, very sweet, kind, caring individuals. And C's are the people who are very data driven. We're all a blend of that. You're a D, I'm a D, you're an I, I'm an I, so on and so forth. But your level of D will be different from mine. For contractors out in the world, the vast majority of the clients that you're going to meet are S's. They're going to be S-driven. And S-driven individuals are the types that say, Rob, it's okay, leave your boots on, just come on in. But inwardly, they're thinking, oh my God, I'm going to have to clean up after he's done. They will never say anything to you. They are the type of people, when you meet with them, they don't like conflict. And conflict to them is asking them, which one do you want? They're going to, that's a yes or no answer. They don't like that.
That's only going to get worse with our text-driven society.
That's right. So when I would meet with people that when I would meet with them, I tried to identify what they weren't first. So if they're very sweet and kind and not really outgoing, then they're not a D or an I, because D and I people are very outgoing. If their house is a little bit disorganized, then they're not a C, because you know a person who's a C because they walk in and everything is just it's just very neat and tidy. If they have pictures of their family and vacations and all this other stuff, and they got offer you a coffee, then they're an S. So I would communicate with them the way they wanted to. I would ask them questions the way they wanted to be asked questions. I would adapt to them. And it wasn't that I wasn't being not true to myself. This is how these people receive communication. So this is how I needed to communicate with them. I needed to ask them those questions. So when I asked them, what's going on, the response was, well, I'm not really sure. There was this. So the answer I gave back was that tone, very sweet, kind, and caring. Because I believe it or not, I'm actually a sweet, kind, caring guy.
I don't believe it.
Right. So when I gave them a solution, I would say to them, well, Rob, based on what we've talked about and the questions I've asked and the answers that you've given me, this one makes the most sense to me for you and your family. So I didn't ask them if that's the one they wanted. I had already gotten that answer by the questions that I asked, the questions they had asked me, and back and forth. The one thing you have to do with those groups, the S's, is before you leave, you have to 100% sure that they are okay with the decision that has been made. That there is no doubt in their mind that this is the right thing that they are going to do or have done.
Yeah. Do you feel that what we talked about, that this will help you, kind of question?
Right. And there's a constant reassurance. There may be buyer's remorse, so you're going to have to make sure that you've dealt with that. You may get a phone call afterwards, because the person that comes home that lives with them, or friend or family or neighbor, whatever, may question what they've done. So you need to arm them with as much information as possible. When you meet different personalities, so if I ask you, Rob, what's going on here? And you said, well, Rick, I was doing some research on this and I watched some YouTube videos. Okay, great. That person is a C, which means that I need to give them information back in that order. If I say, Rob, what's going on here? It's like, I don't know. Hey, Rick, I really love your hat. I said, I have a hat like that too. I got that. Okay, they're very chatty. So those are the people that you have to kind of pull back in. If I ask you, Rob, what's going on, and you say to me, I don't know, you're the expert, you tell me. Okay, boom. That's a person that likes to be in control. You let them be in control. So the interesting thing is
I say that. Well, if I just bought some tires and they're telling me all about pricing, I said, listen, I'm a carpenter, but you're the guy that knows about tires. You tell me what is best because I want to make a good decision and I don't want to think about it beyond that.
Right, which means that you're more than likely dewired. But it could be. So the thing too about those personality types is under stress they become somebody that they're not. Your job as a contractor is to get that person to relax.
That's right.
And so as a consumer, you have to understand that there is stress. Whether it's a replacement, whether something's broken, or it's just like, you know what, let's get that new bathroom done. Let's get it done. And you're all excited, and then it's like, oh, the hard work of going through, who do I call? Who do I get to do this? That's stress. So even though it's something fun and exciting to get done, there is stress. The mess, the this, the that, everything else. So your job as a contractor is to ask the right questions. Your job as a consumer is to ask them questions. So be armed with the right questions. How long have you been in business? How long have you been doing this? Do you subcontract it? What do you do to keep the place clean? What kind of warranties do you have? Where do you buy the materials? Can I buy the materials myself? If I can, great. Do you get final say over? So ask more questions you ask, more answers you're going to get. So if you're dealing with a contractor, it's just, don't worry about it. I'm an expert. Okay, that's not somebody you want to deal with.
You've already said it. I'm going to recap it so that my brain can wrap around it. But not only are we talking about that you need to ask better questions, but you've got, as contractors, you guys have different personalities that you're going to run into. And I would hope that you guys that are listening to this, that something was triggered in your head when Rick said, hey, you should talk to this type of person this way, and this type of person this way, and all of that. That should have reminded you about some positive or some negatives that has happened in the past, but you can't treat everybody the same. You should already know that, but I'm being a little facetious that what Rick just went through, that should hopefully help you. And consumers, here's the next on the next page, flip over on the next page there, following along. What does the consumer have to do? What if a contractor walks in and he's got muddy boots on, he flips the door open and he's just a bull in the china shop? How does a customer deal with that guy versus a mousy type of contractor? And customers may not run across too many mousy type of contractors, but consumers should be able to deal with the different types of contractors as well, shouldn't they?
Absolutely. And yes, you have to understand that in that sales process, and this is the thing that I like. Believe it or not, I like to be in control. So I like to be in control of the sales process. I really, really do. So if you can sense that I want to be in control of that sales process and I'm your client, let me have control. Redirect me. The reason I want to be in control is because I don't trust you. Once I trust you, I will relax. So understand too, from a contractor's perspective, if you're running around and you're just trying to jam this sales call in or this discovery call, whatever it is you want to call it, and you're just kind of sliding in and you come in and you're just completely stressed out, you just had an argument with one of your guys or something happened, you're stressed out, you will be somebody that you're not. So you need to get your head in the right spot.
And the other person will probably pick up on that before you will, won't they?
Yeah. Don't shut up. Don't complain.
Yeah. Side note: contractors never talk bad about the competition.
No.
The customer knows they're interviewing you, but most customers don't consider the fact that they are also being interviewed. And contractors, if you're unaware of that, if you're new to the game, you should be interviewing your consumers because you want to make sure that there's a good fit. This is not a sleight of hand thing. There's nothing shouldn't be everything up on board. You are interviewing them to see if there's a good fit for you.
Absolutely. So, and this is the thing too, that a good contractor or trades business owner, they have a script that they will follow. Things that they do. And the reason you follow a script, it's a process. You follow a process because you want a repeatable result. If you're not following a process, which means a script, you're going to get different results all the time. That being said, you need to adapt during that process. So if I meet somebody that is very fast paced, I got to keep up with them. I'm asking the same questions, but they're still going to be a whole lot quicker. There's a give and take there. If they're a little calmer, then I need to slow down and adapt and actually lower my voice down. If they're very data driven, I take time for the exchange of information. If they like to be in control, I will never say, here's what I'm going to do. I would say, would it be okay? Would you mind? Those types of things. So it's still the same process, but you just adapt. So we always talk about McDonald's. It's always the same process, but when they get busy, they just speed up. When they're slower, they slow it down. They're not cooking as many patties. They're not cooking as many fries. They kind of slow it down. So it's the same thing is with your process. It's still got to be a process to get that same result. You just have to adapt to your client. Simple as that.
I would bet money that after we spoke about those things in our back and forth there, that a little light bulb went off for some contractors, and that hopefully, and that also happened for the consumers that are listening as well, that if we ask better questions, we're going to get a better result. It sounds kind of silly to say, but really, if we want a predictable result, we've got to have a process. As a consumer, know your budget, know when you want it done, know where the guys can come and go, which bathroom can they use in the house if it's going to be more than a one-day job, or should you get a porta potty outside? All of those things kind of already have that job figured out in your mind. And contractors, if you do a thing that your job basically is the same each time, basically, you should be able to give your consumers an idea of how long that you'll be there. And that if you are taking your boots off at the door, or if you're doing this or you're doing that, or how you're protecting the floor or the airspace or for dust, whatever, contractors should definitely know how long the job's going to take. And if you're a young contractor listening, I promise you that your consumer, they may be the nicest person in the world, but they're still going to want to know how long you're going to be in their personal space. I promise you that. So hopefully the things that we've talked about today are jarring a few things loose, and it's going to help you ask those better questions so that you can get a better result. Rick, is there anything else we should discuss or talk about or throw back and forth before we let everybody go?
So I've asked all the questions I need to ask. I've got all the information I need.
Did you ask all the good questions?
I think so.
We could probably drill down on that 1,000 different ways and talk about that for hours upon hours. And if you guys have specific questions for us, send a comment, like, share, and subscribe, and we will get back to that. And maybe we'll do a special podcast if the question is big enough or if it resonates enough. But asking better questions of the person that you're talking to is going to get you a more predictable and better result for both parties.
Absolutely. Thanks, Rob.
Thanks, Rick. Until next time.
We'll talk soon.
To learn more about Rick, go to his website, workbootconsulting.com. And to learn more about Rob, go to his website, sdlbr.com. Until next time, work on bridging that gap. Remember, it's always a two-way street.